Well, good afternoon, everyone, or maybe morning or evening, depending where you are joining us from. Welcome back here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of ULA's first ever Atlas V 511 configuration rocket for the U.S. Space Force 8 mission. We are live with Marcus down at Kennedy Space Center, about 5.5 miles from the pad. And thank you so much, Marcus, for being down there and this view. This is a live view of the pad as we count down towards the scheduled liftoff time of 2 p.m. Eastern here today, or just under an hour now until liftoff. We've been getting updates from ULA throughout the morning that fueling is going well. The weather has just been updated to 90% go with just some light winds and pretty good cloud conditions, and everything is proceeding well. But as we get started, as always, take a moment, hit that like button, share out the broadcast. I know we went live about 20 minutes early, but we had this view and we just wanted to get it out to you guys and start answering your guys' questions as we count down to liftoff here later today. Also, take a moment to check out the Launchpad shop. You can head on over there, use promo code LAUNCHDAY. That gets you 10% off everything in the shop. But you're looking at a live view of SLC or Slick 41 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station with the Atlas V 511 rocket out on the pad. Today, it's carrying 2 satellites for the U.S. Space Force, weighing about 13 to 1,400 kilograms, going up to a near geosynchronous orbit at 36,000 kilometers or 22,300 miles above the equator. As always, the Atlas V is not a recoverable rocket, so it will crash into the Atlantic Ocean, and also the fairings are new. But as I said, this is the first ever time ULA is launching a configuration of the 511, which is a 5-meter fairing, a one Centaur engine, and it has one SRB on the side of it, which we'll see hopefully once ULA actually goes live. We'll patch them in as well. We are keeping a live view on also the live tracker updates from United Launch Alliance through their website, ulalaunch.com. And they've been really active, letting us know about the weather forecast, the fueling of the upper stage and the first stage, and how everything is progressing really well. Really great update here was that Launch Weather Officer Will Ulrich reports that the forecast has improved to 90% acceptable conditions at the opening of today's launch window. And that's something really important to keep in mind. Today is a 2-hour launch window, so if for any reason they do need to have a delay, they are able to do so. And one unique part about ULA launches with the Atlas is they are 2 different countdowns. There's L- and T-. So though they are going for launch at 2 o'clock, at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, the launch countdown clock will actually be sitting at T-4 minutes and holding, very similar to what we saw with the shuttle. That is because at that point they have a minimum 30-minute hold to make sure everything is ready to go into that final launch sequence. If they need to extend it, they can, and that's why they have that 2-hour window available. But we're hoping that we don't have to see that occur here today. But we're going to keep that big view up on your screen of the pad from about 5.5 miles away. You can see the 4 lightning towers on the sides there, making sure to protect the launch site if there was any the lightning in the region. But the weather is nice and clear today. Got lots of people jumping on, people all over the world. Great to have you. We've got Turkey here, we got Florida, we got North Carolina. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We got Sri Lanka. Great to see so many of you. Spacex guy, welcome to the crew. Thanks for becoming a VIP spectator there. If you guys would like to help support what we do, you can do so by hitting that join button. It starts at just $1.99, and you can become a VIP spectator and get access to behind the scenes over on our Discord. There are some also other tiers there if you want to get some merch discounts, maybe even free merch, and support us at a larger level. Or you can send super chats or super stickers, and we will be able to thank you for that support as well. We've got a new update here from ULA. The fuel fill sequence is beginning. This procedure releases the RP1 kerosene into the RD-180 main engine in preparation for ignition. So they are moving along in their countdown sequence here. Expecting ULA to go live in about 15 minutes when they enter that hold, and that's when we'll get some updates about them for today's flight. Now, I know one big question is, how are you going to launch a rocket with only one SRB on the side? That doesn't make sense. It's not going to be balanced. Well, the 511 configuration of the Atlas V is a 5.4 meter diameter, 17.7 foot payload fairing, and is the only Atlas V variant that has not yet been flown. So checking off there, the 411 is a smaller fairing, but has flown previously with the single booster half a dozen times. With the one booster, it works with the 4 main engines to keep the center of gravity still within the center of the rocket, but gives it just that extra little oomph that it needs to get off the pad and up high enough that once it separates, the rest of the main engines can continue its journey up to its orbit. On board, 2 satellites going up for the U.S. Space Force. These are Situational Awareness Satellites, or GSSAPs, that the U.S. Space Force has asked for them to launch here today. This mission will mark the first launch for the company in 2022 as well, and is the first and only 511 configuration Atlas V mission that will actually ever fly in history. And you might say, well, how do we know that? Well, the Atlas V has been retired. So United Launch Alliance is no longer selling Atlas V missions. So we are seeing the last of these starting to occur, which is sad to see. It's had quite a history and being a successful rocket, but they are getting ready for their next generation, the Vulcan Centaur, and they are starting to retire these. So this is the first and only 511 that we will ever see. Athar asks, is this a NASA project? No. So this is, though launching from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and they have to work with NASA, for those launches. This is the United Launch Alliance and the U.S. Space Force. Good catch there that the title is wrong. Thank you for catching that, guys. That probably auto-corrected because we've had so many other Atlas launches. Yes, 511. There we go. That should be updated, refresh, and it will be fixed there. Brant, this is Marcus Cam. That it is. Great to have so many of you joining in here. We've got Iceland, we've got Slovakia, Sydney, North Dakota. We got someone from Endor. Welcome. We got New Jersey. We got Colorado. We've got California. Great to have so many of you guys here. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat. Just tag us at the Launchpad, and we will be answering those as we count down towards liftoff about 40 minutes from now. James, it's like we're back in the 50s. We're definitely going back, especially with SLS and going into that kind of era. We're going back towards more of the Apollo-style crafts, but they work. And we'll hopefully see an SLS flight here in the next couple of months. Big Teddy from Calgary. Great to see another Albertan in the house. Welcome. We got England, Poland. Great to see you here. Hey, Mars, how's it going? Good to see you. Description's updated as well, Matt. Thank you. Yeah, we got that. Might just take a minute. YouTube's slow sometimes. But take a moment. You can send out the broadcast. Let people know that we are live. And we are counting down towards the launch of these 2 geosynchronous awareness satellites. It's your first time here, though. Welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the host here at the Launchpad. Here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. We cover all the launches of the big and the little guys, as well as bring you Space News Update, our weekly live show. We've got some exciting projects in the works that will be coming online, hopefully in the next 60 to 90 days that we can't wait to tell you more about, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 100K this year, and excited to see if we can hit that number and when we would be able to do that. Justin asks, why would SpaceX intentionally rupture the test tank? They do that on purpose for a couple of reasons. One, to ensure the pressure that is able to be built up by the larger tanks, because you have to remember that little tank is quite low, but when they're filling up booster or Starship, they need to be able to pump those fuels and everything a lot higher. So that's one reason. Second, and they know the rupture point of their welding, of their materials. So that's actually a really important part that they do. Something we don't normally see done by NASA and others. They do some testing, but not near as publicly or, near as much time throwing things away. But that's the difference between public and private space companies. Great to see you, Mark. What part weren't she getting there, Ra1? And I can clarify that for you. Sorry about that. Just running through some of the data of the actual mission there. Fairground, the launch is scheduled for 40 minutes from now. We are at L minus 40 minutes, T minus 10 minutes because we will, T minus 14 minutes because we'll go into a 4-minute hold in about 10 minutes. So it's a little confusing, these ones, because we have the 2 countdowns. We are working to try to get a countdown timer on our screen for hopefully one of the next launches, so stay tuned for that. The launch broadcast, they had a little bit of a delay, but they're going to be going live in about 20 minutes. They're getting ready for that, and we'll have some nice close-up views of the pad thanks to the United Launch Alliance for that. Charlie, this is live, and this is a live view from 5.5 miles away from the pad at Kennedy Space Center at the Saturn V Center in Banana Beach bleacher area. Those birds that you can see actually flying through your screen are not visible to the eye at the viewing site. So those are just because we are punched in that you can see them. So those will have to clear out once things start to liven up. And we'll go from there. We've got a great question from James. How long does it take to reach orbit? We did see ULA put out a breakdown of this. So let me pull that up for you guys. It gives you a breakdown of all of the stages that we'll go through after liftoff. It is pretty quick. The Atlas V is a pretty fast rocket here, but we will have obviously ignition and liftoff all right at T0. Maximum dynamic pressure, or max Q, will occur 1 minute into flight. We'll see the single solid booster jettison 2 minutes into flight. The payload fairing will jettison 3.5 minutes into flight. Main engine cutoff and separation and ignition of that second stage will all occur at about the 4-minute 20 to 30 second mark. They happen quite quickly. That second stage completes its first burn. It's a 9-minute burn at T plus 13 minutes. It'll then have another burn at 1 hour and 9 minutes, which will last for about 4 minutes at that time. It then has a third burn 6.5 hours into flight for about 1.5 minutes. And at T plus 6 hours 35 minutes and 6 hours 45 minutes, they will have separation. And then they will do a blowdown burn at 7:11, which brings back in that second stage into a re-entry path, so it gets discarded. And the end of the mission will occur at T plus 7 hours 45 minutes. Now, don't worry. We're not going to be live all that long. We're going to be covering the launch up through as long as ULA does. They don't normally cover all of their secondary and third burns of the second stage. They normally cover just the first. So we'll probably be live for 15-20 minutes after launch. We'll keep answering your questions for a little bit, and we'll go from there. But it is a longer mission getting these to the location that they want to be at. And we got a good update here from the United Launch Alliance. In the countdown, they have completed the fuel sequence and they have readied the first stage main propulsion system. That just came in about 10 seconds ago. So they are definitely getting ready to lift off here. Everything pointing that they will be on time 35 minutes from now. Date on top says January 11th. Typo. Refresh. It should be updated. Should say January 11th. Yeah, the camera view, that's 5.5 miles away. That's about as clear as you're going to get through the humidity and heat of Florida, even though it is the winter. So we're pretty glad that we got this shot here. It's just a little bit of that atmospheric distortion. It's actually really interesting. This would be the same distance that you'd be shooting if you were watching a Starship launch from the beach at South Padre Island. So a great idea there of what you can see. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of the first and last Atlas V 511 configuration rocket. This is the first time they've ever launched one with a 5.4 meter fairing, a single Centaur second stage engine, and one SRB on the side. Deployment today is going to take it to be around the equator, and that's why you're seeing those burns and that longer time is to get it in that stable area. And just like that, we have hit T-minus 4 minutes and counting, which means we are now holding for 30 minutes. This is a built-in hold designed to deal with any issues that occur during the countdown sequence. This can be extended should it be required, but everything is pointing towards still being on-time liftoff at 2 p.m. Eastern or 1900 or 7 p.m. UTC from Space Launch Complex 41, which is on your screen there. Which is a great thing. We have seen these extend briefly. They do only end the hold once they have completed their final readiness polls from the launch team and management, and ULA will be live for when we should be able to hear those and see the go, no go occur. And at that point, we'll also do our go, no go in the chat. But if you'd like to be able to use some of our custom emojis like the go, no go ones, you can hit that join button, just $1.99, and you can get some of our special emojis there, and you're helping support us do what we do. Got some questions. Is it much bigger than the Falcon 9? It is smaller than the Falcon 9 generally. It all depends on that fairing. So the Atlas V actually has a number of different fairings that it can use and configurations. But one of the last that we are going to see. Lynn saying, dang, 5.4 meter fairing, that's pretty large. One of the larger ones that we see in the industry, absolutely. Really, one of the first that we're going to see much bigger is going to be Neutron when it does its testing of a 7 meter bottom of the rocket that flares up to the top. Another update from ULA, all 3 cryogenic tanks of the rocket have been topped off to fuel flight, and they have a fully fueled rocket ready to go for liftoff here today. If you guys want to follow along with the live updates from ULA, you can head over to ulalaunch.com, but we'll plop them in, or at least read them to you for those updates. Jason's asking, how long does it take it to go around the whole world? Generally speaking, it depends which way they're going because of the speeds for it. But normally an orbit takes the station at least about 90 to 95 minutes. So that is, we'll see something similar. So they'll complete a number of orbits before they have their stage separation. James French is asking, are rockets safer than shuttles? There's a lot of difference in just even how they function, how they can launch payloads. When you launch a shuttle, you've got a lot of excess weight that you're launching other than your payload. So like today, the only weight on tonight's flight is the device holding the 2 satellites on the rocket and then the 2 satellites. So that's why they only need 1 SRB instead of maybe 5 SRBs or 2 Centaurs on the second stage type of thing, or, you know, a totally different rocket. So that is why you see a lot of launches occurring this way. Something like a Falcon 9 rideshare like Transporter 3, you saw 105 satellites on board. That was because it wouldn't make sense for any of them to buy a Falcon 9 on their own. But altogether, it covers the cost of that launch. It actually is a pretty good moneymaker for SpaceX. They make quite a bit on that mission. So it really all depends on it. Shuttle, you had the weight of the shuttle, But a lot of the things that Shuttle deployed, mainly Hubble and the ISS, you needed human crews to work on it or prep it or different things in that cargo bay or after it was deployed, so that made the most sense there. We will see kind of a mini shuttle coming out in the next year with Dream Chaser. That's going to be about a quarter of the size of shuttle that was originally scheduled to launch on top of an Atlas V like we're seeing today, but with 5 boosters. But it has been delayed a little bit and will not be launching on Atlas V's anymore, and will be launching on the new Vulcan Centaur, which we hope to see some testing maybe today. Or not today, sorry, this year. It's not ready. But it all depends if Jeff Bezos can get ULA their engines, and that is what we are waiting on. You guys are just joining us, though. Welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage as we count down towards liftoff. We are currently in a hold, T-minus 4 minutes in holding, but are on track to have launch liftoff at 2 p.m. Eastern, or 30 minutes from now. Phil, who's better record, ULA or SpaceX? On-time takeoffs, no mishaps. I believe they're probably pretty close to tied. ULA has a really good track record with their Atlas. So I would say they're probably pretty close to tied there. Obviously, ULA's done more launches, but SpaceX would probably be getting pretty close to tying that up. I'd have to actually take a look into that. They have way more landings, of course, because ULA doesn't land anything. You can see on your screen there some venting occurring on the bottom of the rocket. And just right as we saw that venting occur, we are in that T-minus 4 minute hold, counting down the last 28 minutes until liftoff. But we have heard that weather is officially go for liftoff a half an hour from now. And the final briefing by the weather officer has been completed. And they are working towards that liftoff time of 2 o'clock. We are keeping an eye on ULA and getting ready to patch them in once they go live. Did sound like they were going to have just a very slight delay to the beginning of their stream, but once they do, this is what you'll be able to see on your screen. We'll have 2 options. We can do this view, but we also have this really awesome setup where we'll have the really punched in view of the pad from our camera, but also we'll have ULA on your screen to get those really close-up pad shots. SpaceX launches a lot more frequently than NASA or ULA combined. Got to be hands up. They do launch more frequently. They've got a lot of contracts, but they also launch a lot of their own stuff. So if you took all the Starlink launches out of what SpaceX does, then they would be very much like what ULA is and NASA. So that is one of the differences. They're launching their own payloads, so they launch more frequently. You can see on your screen a lot of birds there flying around and in the region. And this is one of the things why they have the water tower during the shuttle. They would actually have the water deluge set off, but they would also set off some water in the region to try to scare away the birds in advance of the launch, because they don't want the launch itself to scare away the birds, because then they could fly into the rocket. They want to actually scare them away just before the launch. But also keep in mind, we're shooting 5.5 miles. Those birds could be 2-3 miles away from where Marcus is, and then the rocket's another 2 miles. So not to worry, the pad's not being swarmed, but there are lots of birds there, and that is because Kennedy and Cape Canaveral are wildlife preserves. Like 95% of the land is preserved marsh and land for the animals and the birds, and that's why you always see that much activity. Yes, it is SpaceX guy. This is Marcus down there. If I actually type him up just a little bit later, do you want to say hi, Marcus?
Hello.
That's Marcus. He's down at Kennedy there, and was saying that seems like while we were setting up, lots of people asking questions. Where's the pad? What's launching and things? So people are very happy and excited for that, to have a nice clear day for a launch attempt here today. So, Lord, no delay yet. We're currently sitting at T-minus 4 minutes, which is normal for a ULA launch. There's actually 2 countdowns that occur. Liftoff time, or L minus, and then T minus. So T minus is the clock that has holds built in. L minus is the clock that doesn't stop unless you stop the whole count and reset. So L minus, we would be at L minus 25, but we are now at T minus 4 minutes and holding. And that hold will resume at 1:56 p.m. One thing we did want to patch in here, actually, quickly, if we can, if you are down in the Florida region and are there, we're going to quickly cut this away. Here is where you will be able to see today's flight, as well as some of the main events leading up to that launch at T plus 330 seconds all the way out at that 11 circle. So it is launching pretty much straight to the east. Little south, but it's pretty much straight east from the launch site here today. But if you are anywhere in Florida all the way up to Savannah, or actually happen to be in the Bahamas, you're going to have a really great view of today's launch. So if you know anyone there, send them a link, let them know, hey, watch here, but check outside your window, and you might actually have a really great view of the launch here today. One thing we do want to point out is when we do go to this setup here with the ULA main screen and our punched in shot on the side, we're going to try to track the rocket, but keep in mind there's going to be quite a bit of a delay. ULA is known to have a delay on their feed, 30 plus seconds, so we're going to actually see liftoff occur on our cam first. Meanwhile, they're still counting down. So keep that in mind. We'll actually have the excitement of 2 different launches, and we'll go from there. The weather is 90% go there, Phil. The weather currently at Kennedy is, let me pull this up here, currently 23 degrees Celsius or 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds 7 miles per hour or 11 kilometers an hour, with gusts a little bit more. 56% humidity. And it looks like ULA is going live, so we're going to punch into that and get ready for liftoff here. We'll get some nice close-up shots as well. And if you're just joining us, welcome to our live launch coverage of ULA's Atlas V 511 configuration, the first and only of this configuration, launching from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station here today. We are currently targeting a liftoff time of 22 minutes from now, and everything is determined that they are on time for launch, and the weather is go. Those are birds, Michael. Those are lots and lots of birds in your screen, and that is what you are seeing there. The birds be wild. Morning, Richie. Good to see you. James, so this is historic. It is the first and last Atlas 511, and we're going to start seeing these more often. And some of the variations of the Atlas V we might not ever see fly again. So It is something that we're going to start seeing these rockets retire and get ready here. One thing we do want to point out is we do appreciate that ULA does make it clear that we are allowed to rebroadcast their feeds there for editorial purposes and doing our live commentary, so we do appreciate that, but they are getting spooled up here. We'll patch them in for an update on today's flight once they fully start their feed here in the next couple of minutes. But take a moment, hit that like button, really does help us out. For those that joined a little bit later, don't forget you can also head on over to the shop, get 10% off everything there using promo code LAUNCHDAY. And if you haven't yet, consider joining the Discord. I know some people are probably hanging out in live comms and watching and chatting as we count down to liftoff here 20 minutes from now. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat. Just tag us at the launch pad with your question, and we will be answering those. We're going to quickly run through all of the data again of ULA for today. Actually, they're going to live, so we might just patch them in for an update, and we will go through that separately here as they get started. On the right side of your screen is that live view of the pad, and on the left is the update from ULA.
Systems engineer at ULA, and your host for today's Atlas V USSF-8 launch for the United States Space Force. I'm joining you here today from ULA's Atlas Spaceflight Operations Center at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Liftoff is scheduled for 2 p.m. Eastern, though we do have a 2-hour window available today. In addition to watching our webcast, you can also follow
Let me know if you guys can hear that all right.
ULAlaunch.com. The countdown is currently in a 30-minute planned hold. We have 2 planned holds in our 7.5-hour launch count, which give our team additional time to resolve any issues prior to entering the terminal count. At this time, the team is not working any issues, and we are proceeding towards an on-time liftoff. Today's ascent to near geosynchronous orbit is more than 6 hours, so we'll wrap up about 15 minutes after liftoff. In a few minutes, we'll hear from ULA President and CEO, Storb Burnout, about the unique rocket configuration ULA is using for today's flight. And stay tuned after liftoff to learn about flight commentary from ULA's Patrick Moore and the latest news on ULA's ICPS role in the upcoming NASA SLS mission from ULA's Joven D. Herrera. Before moving forward, let's check in on today's weather forecast with Space Launch Delta 45 Weather Officer Brian Sizek.
Thanks, Caroline. We actually have a fairly dynamic weather setup in place right now, but overall conditions looking quite favorable for a launch just about 30 minutes here. So as you can see, we do have the live satellite right behind me. We do have, the first thing you'll probably notice is some area of thicker clouds well to our north. That's because there is a cold front that's very slowly working its way from north to south across Florida. But what's really helping us out right now is this finger of dry air that's going kind of right across the middle of the state. We just have some high wispy cirrostratus clouds, and they are gradually thickening as we go later and later in the day today. But overall, they're high enough and thin enough where they're probably not going to be a concern as we head into the launch window. So let's take a look at the latest launch forecast as briefed by my colleague Will Ulrich just a few minutes ago. So the probability of violating our weather constraints at the start of the window, it's just 10%, gradually increasing a little bit to 20% by the end of the window. So in other words, that's a 90% chance of go at the beginning of the window, 80% chance go by the end of the window. Winds well below constraints, around 11 to 15 knots coming from the north, but overall looks like a nice afternoon for a launch. Caroline?
Thanks, Brian. ULA is launching USSF-8 for the Space Force's Space Systems Command. Let's learn more from avionics responsible engineer, Lieutenant Charlie Chuk.
USSF-8 will launch 2 identical Space Situational Awareness Program satellites, GSAP 5 and 6, to a near geosynchronous orbit, approximately 22,300 miles or 36,000 kilometers above the equator. GSAP is a space-based capability that collects space situational awareness data, allowing for more accurate tracking and characterization of human-made orbiting objects. The satellites have unobstructed and distinct vantage points for viewing resident space objects orbiting Earth, without the weather or atmospheric disruptions that limit ground-based observations. This will be the 3rd launch for the GSAP program, following the successful 2014 and 2016 launches of AFSpace 4 and 6, which both launched atop Delta IV rockets. USSF-8 will be the first flight of the Atlas V 511 configuration. Stay tuned after liftoff to hear from our USSF-8 mission director, Colonel Erin Golden, where she will highlight the criticality and diversity of our space partnerships that are required to achieve mission success.
And if you are just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of today's Atlas V 511 configuration. We are currently sitting at L-15 minutes and counting. We are still in a 4-minute hold, and we will exit that hold if everything continues at T-4 minutes or at 11 minutes from now. We've heard that the weather is good for launch. On your screen, you're seeing a live view on the top right side of your screen from 5.5 miles away at Kennedy Space Center looking out to the pad, and on the left some video footage of ULA of the journey that this Atlas V took. While they continue showing that there and give an idea, we're going to go to our wide shot here where you can see actually both a little bit clearer here today. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat. Just tag us at the launch pad and we'll continue answering those as we count down towards liftoff here today. And just let me know if you guys are still hearing, can you guys still hear their stream? Or is that just coming through on my end? Let me know. One of our audio things is doing a little bit of a thing today, so. No, not here. Okay, perfect. Watching from Malawi, Central Africa, great to have you here. If you're just joining us, take a moment, let us know where you're watching from, and that would be great. Just your end, perfect. That's what we want. But yeah, if you're just joining us, let us know where you're watching from. Take a moment, hit that like button. It really does help us out, and we are in countdown. Communication channels, ULA just saying, communication channels here in the Launch Control Center are quiet as the console operators monitor their systems in the built-in hold, but they are currently working 0 issues, which is a really great sign as we count down L-13 minutes until liftoff, and now L-9 minutes until we exit that 4-minute hold. Again, keep in mind, on the right side of your screen here, we've got our punch-in shot from 5.5 miles away. When liftoff occurs, we will see liftoff on that camera first, probably by a good 20 or 30 seconds in advance of ULA. This is because of the delay of them sending out their feed versus us having our own raw feed down there from the launch site. So just something to keep in mind. We're not delayed, YouTube, but we're all set there. We've got New Hampshire here, England, Melbourne, Florida, Beaumont, Texas, Norfolk, Virginia, Minnesota, Rochester, Netherlands, more Florida, Edinburgh, Argentina, Pennsylvania, Latvia, Europe, Devon, UK, more Netherlands, more UK, Colorado, Brazil, Pennsylvania. Great to have all of you here as we count down the last 12 minutes until flight, running through everything one last time for today. Today you're watching our live launch coverage of the USSF-8. This is a mission for the U.S. Space Force in partnership with ULA as the launch provider. They're launching 2 geosynchronous space situational awareness satellites from Slick 41 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Payload today, 1,300 to 1,400 kilograms, going to a near geosynchronous orbit above the equator at 22,300 miles or 36,000 kilometers. And this is a long mission. Deployment only taking place now 6.5 hours after liftoff. So we're not going to be live that whole time, and you'll want to follow ULA over on Twitter for confirmation of deployment. The Atlas V is not a recoverable rocket, so it will crash into the Atlantic Ocean. This is, as we've been saying, the first and last flight of an Atlas V 511 configuration. It's the third mission ULA has done as part of the GSSAP mission, or deploying these types of satellites. The 75th Atlas V mission to launch from Cape Canaveral, so a milestone there, and the 148th ULA mission in their history. And we are already at the 6th orbital launch attempt of 2022, with at least 3 or 4 more scheduled before the end of January. These satellites are going to help improve the ability to rapidly detect, warn, characterize, and attribute disturbances to space systems in the geosynchronous environment. And that's what they're doing here today. But we are now at L-10 minutes and counting. Let's listen in to Tori Bruno.
This is a really cool mission. We're going to launch 2 spacecraft directly injected to a high energy near geosynchronous orbit. And a lot of you have asked about the configuration of the rocket that we're going to use. Well, this will be the first flight of the big slider, the Atlas 511, with only 1 solid rocket motor. And we call it the big slider because if you watch the launch, you're going to see it kind of power slide off the pad because of this asymmetric torque. And a lot of you have wondered, well, how do you fly that? Well, that nozzle is canted to pass through the average center of gravity, and the RD-180 has tremendous control authority with its thrust vector system, and it can overcome that and compensate for it. And this is just the right amount of energy to carry these 2 payloads to their very cool mission of space surveillance, kind of like a neighborhood watch for GEO. Go Atlas, go USSF 8.
And there was a quick message from Tori Bruno wishing the mission well as they work towards here. We did just have an update from United Launch Alliance that the launch conductor has just reminded all consoles that once we pass L-7 minutes, which is 2 minutes from now, and they prepare for the readiness poll, any team members that have any sort of issue will now have to announce hold in the communications loop, which will identify and then have to identify their station and briefly state the issue for the hold, and then they will enter a hold for the launch. We are standing by for their readiness poll for today, where we will get a go, no go from the launch team on if they should continue the count. We are currently at L-8 minutes, 4 minutes left in the hold. So we are keeping an eye on that and listening in for that update that will occur in the next couple of minutes. They need to have that go, no go before they can actually exit the poll for the launch. And here comes the count.
Poll for system status and readiness to proceed. This is the final status check for all Atlas vehicle systems, ground systems, spacecraft, and the U.S. Space Force Eastern Range. The vehicle system readiness poll includes electrical systems, hydraulics, pneumatics, propulsion systems, flight control, and propellants. Let's listen in as Ron McKee performs the final polling.
L-7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems, propulsion.
Go.
Hydraulic.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Centaur systems, propulsion.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Gas.
Go.
Electrical systems, airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
DCQ.
Go.
Operation support.
Go.
COM.
Go.
Umbilical.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Red light monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle Systems Engineer.
Go.
Anomaly Chief.
Go.
Range Coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch Director.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission Director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. ALC Verify T0 set for 1900 Zulu.
Verified.
Polling is complete. The ULA launch team and the Space Force mission director are go for launch. From T-minus 4 minutes until launch, you will be listening to Ron McKee and his team performing the final steps in the countdown procedure. Several critical activities occur in the final minutes before launch, including verifying fuel tank levels and pressures in the booster and Centaur and arming the flight termination system. At T-minus 25 seconds, you'll hear Go Atlas, Go Centaur, Go USSF 8. This is the final status check of Atlas, Centaur, and USSF 8 readiness. At T-minus 3 seconds, the main engine ignites, followed by ignition of the solid rocket booster. Atlas V lift off the launch pad, you'll begin hearing flight commentator Patrick Moore providing launch vehicle ascent data.
And there is good news. We are go for launch. We heard that we have permission to launch, which means everything's ready. You can see them cycling through their cameras there. I'm just going to say it probably once or twice more. We're still at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. We will exit that hold in the next 60 seconds and count down towards liftoff at 2 p.m. Eastern. Keep in mind, though, we are going to have an early view on the top right side of your screen, probably by about 30 seconds for the liftoff. Maybe that person will get out of the way of the camera. Hopefully. This is what happens when you do live stuff, folks, down at the launch site. You never know what you're going to see. But if not, we do have that view from ULA coming here. But you can see Playa Linda Beach and out there, very busy. Lots of people excited to watch today's launch. Some beautiful, clear weather as we get ready. And there we go. They moved out of the way so we can now see there. But we are going to be entering... We are at L-minus 5 minutes, and they are standing by to resume that countdown clock. And there we go, T-minus 4 minutes and counting. Maria, this is a mission for the U.S. Space Force.
Go for launch at 2 p.m. Eastern. With liftoff approaching, we're going to raise the volume on our launch team so you can hear the final preps taking place.
So we are going to keep their audio up.
LC
Try to listen into mission control there.
Roger.
Three minutes.
There we go. Marcus making some moves because people, but that's okay. 3 minutes and counting.
250. FPS internal.
Oh, people are fun. The ding is updates coming in from ULA. That's what the ding is. We can mute the ding, I think. Ted, thank you so much for that super chat. Really appreciate that. Coming down to T-minus 2 minutes. As always, we want to see in the chat.
210. LC spacecraft
Let's
internal.
see.
Roger.
See a go, no go in the chat. If you're a member, hit that emoji button down below and you can use the go, no go emojis there.
Vehicle internal. 155. Launch sequencer start. 150.
Securing Centaur LH2.
Securing Centaur LO2. 140. Launch enabled. 137. FPS arm.
T-minus 90 seconds. The launch vehicle, payload, ground systems, and eastern range are go for launch.
120. With the use arm. FCS count started.
115.
Reduce ECS for launch.
Roger. 110.
Here we go, last 60 seconds.
One minute.
T-minus 1 minute.
Range green.
Range is green.
40 seconds.
Stable at step 3.
T-minus 30 seconds. This is an unmanned mission.
25.
2 satellites for the U.S.
Status
Space
check.
Force.
Go Atlas.
Go boost Centaur. Go USSF 8.
And they are good to launch.
ECDS reduced for launch.
10, 9, 8,
8,
7,
7,
6,
6,
5,
5, 4,
3,
3, 2. There's the water deluge.
We have ignition.
Engine ignition.
And
liftoff.
liftoff. The United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket carrier SF-8 for the United States Space Force.
Now 10 seconds into flight, vehicles will be on the pitch over maneuver, body rate response look good.
You're now hearing the voice of Patrick Moore providing launch vehicle ascent data.
Now 20 seconds in, RE-180 propellant utilization system has gone to closed loop control system, response looks good. Now passing 30 seconds into flight. Vehicles completing the pitch over maneuver, body rate responses continue to look good, engine operating parameters continue to look good. SRB chamber pressure within expected ranges. Now coming up on 58 seconds into flight, Mach 1, Atlas 5 is now supersonic. RE-180 engine operating parameters continue to look good. SRB chamber pressure looks good. Now passing through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure.
There's
Body
the
rates
call for
continue to look
max
good throughout
Q.
boost phase. Now 3 minutes remaining in the booster phase of flight.
There you can see that one booster strapped to the side. Nice clear
Now
day,
passing
some
1
great
minute, 30
camera view.
seconds into flight. SRB chamber pressure tailing off now as SRBs are burning out. And we have SRB burnout. RD-180 throttling down slightly as expected. Engine response looks good. Now passing 1 minute, 50 seconds into flight. Body rates continue to look good throughout boost phase. RD-180 engine operating parameters continue to look good.
And there
Now
goes
2
that
minutes into
SRB.
flight, we have good indication of jettison of the SRB. The Atlas V now weighs 1/2 of its liftoff weight. And vehicle's gone to closed loop steering. Body rates look good. Two
See
minutes
that
remaining in the
beautiful
booster phase
curvature
of flight.
already.
Atlas V is now 38 miles in altitude, 35 miles downrange distance, traveling at 4,200 miles per hour.
Great question from Matt. SRB is solid rocket booster. So it doesn't use liquid fuel, it
Now
actually
2 minutes,
uses
40
solid
seconds
fuel.
into flight. RD-180 pump speeds and injector pressures continue to look good. Body rates continuing to look good throughout boost phase. Now passing 3 minutes into flight. And Centaur reaction control system is now pressurizing to flight levels. RD-180 now throttling down to maintain a constant 2.5 G acceleration limit. Engine response looks good as it's maintaining that 2.5 G acceleration limit. Now 1 minute remaining until BECO. And standing by for payload fairing jettison. And we have good indication of payload fairing jettison. And we have CFLR jettison. Now 3 minutes, 50 seconds into flight. Body rate's continuing to look good. And RD-180 now throttling to maintain a constant 4.6 G acceleration limit. And we've begun boost phase chill down. And standing by for booster engine cutoff shortly.
Move our camera out of the way so you can see that time there. Coming up
And we
to
have
300
booster
seconds
engine
into
cutoff,
flight.
standing by for stage SEP.
Thank you so much for that
We have good
super chat there,
indication of Atlas
Cole.
Centaur separation.
I'll answer that question once we
have
complete
pre-start
the
on the
launch here.
RL-10.
There's main stage separation.
We have ignition and full thrust on the RL-10. Chamber
There
pressure
we go,
looks good.
ignition
Body rates
of
look
that
good.
engine. So it's going to now be a little bit of a longer burn here, so we can answer your question there, Cole. Not the first satellites for the U.S. Space Force. We've seen those for a little bit, but glad that you were able to catch it here at T-minus 4 minutes. Perfect timing. If you guys haven't yet, take a moment, hit that like button. It really does help us out. We are now passed through 300 seconds into flight, currently passing 215 kilometers in altitude, traveling just under 5 kilometers a second, already coming up to 600 kilometers downrange, and on course there. Currently traveling at 95.2 degree in inclination as well.
Commentator Patrick Moore confirmed the successful completion of the early phase of today's flight, and all systems continue to operate nominally. Our next event, Centaur main engine cutoff, will occur in approximately 8 minutes. Earlier this week, Patrick Moore shared a little insight about his role as flight commentator and the vital information he relays to the launch team post-liftoff. Let's take a look.
So they're going to play a video here. We're going to answer some questions. Great question. What is the payload? So it's not classified really. It is 2 Geosynchronous Space Situational Awareness Program satellites, or GSSAP. And they are going to help detect, warn, characterize, and attribute disturbances to space systems in the geosynchronous environment. They are going to be deployed at 22,300 miles or 36,000 kilometers above the equator in a near geosynchronous orbit. So not perfectly geosynchronous, but close. And then that is what those missions will be. Not the first of these satellites. Today they were launching GSSAP-5 and -6 that will be inserted into that orbit, and they are identical satellites. They work in pairs. One of them operates below the GEO belt, and the second operates above it. The main objective of these 2 satellites will to track objects in the heavily trafficked geosynchronous belt that a lot of companies use for placing communication satellites. They will not only help manage traffic but avoid collisions, but will also detect potential threats from space objects. Moreover, these 2 satellites will be able to adjust their orbits to approach and image other satellites should it be required. So they're kind of like air traffic control for space in many ways, tracking everything, seeing if there's any collisions coming up or anything like that. But if you're just joining us, we had successful liftoff of today's first and last Atlas 511 configuration, Atlas 5. There's a replay of the onboard camera from about 8 minutes ago. They are currently going through a burn, working towards that main engine cutoff, which is where they're actually going to wrap up their feed here today. So if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat. We're going to answer those for the next little bit before we wrap up here. But a really great launch of today's mission down there. We got another great job there, Chris. Absolutely. Doing well, SpaceX. How's it going? Absolutely, SpaceX does have more cameras on board, but one of the things we have to remember is they don't get anything out of that. SpaceX does that really because their end goal is to get commercial payload passengers on board, you and I on board. ULA doesn't. That is not their mission. They're going to take astronauts for NASA and private astronauts, but SpaceX needs to really win over the minds and hearts and emotions of a lot of people to be able to do what they want to do in the future. And that is one reason I think why they do their cameras, is to show, look, we're safe, look, we do what we do. So it's very interesting. Deathlon, thank you so much. I appreciate that. We try to make sure we cover the actual facts as the missions are happening, and give you guys a nice clear live view as well of what's happening when they are giving updates from ULA directly. Coming up to 550 seconds into flight, currently now over 325 kilometers in altitude. And you can see that perigee altitude now, so their apogee is at 325.90 and increasing slowly, but that perigee, which is, if you're looking at the Earth, when you launch, we'll grab the Earth here. Ooh, there's the Earth. When you launch from one side, you have to launch up, go sideways, and you have your apogee and your perigee. But if your perigee is lower than your apogee, you're going to re-enter. So they've got high here, but now they're continuing to burn so that their apogee, their perigee is higher than what re-entry would be. And then they're actually going to do 2 more burns, which is going to start bringing them up higher and higher to be out into the really far out orbit that they want to be around the Earth. So as we said, they're going up to 36,000 kilometers, 22,300 miles. Deployment's not going to occur for another 6 hours and 20 minutes, and we're not going to be live for that, but if you want to follow along and see payload confirmation, you can get that from ULA's Twitter. Definitely check that out, and make sure you follow also Tori Bruno, super active on Twitter and gives some great updates as well. So the 511 designation relates to the Atlas V having a 5.4 meter fairing, 1 Centaur upper stage engine, and a 1 solid booster on the side. So it's the first time they've ever launched with only 1 booster on the side with a 5.4 meter fairing. They've done it before with their smaller 4 meter fairing, but they have retired the Atlas. They're not selling any more missions, so this is the first and last we will have ever seen of this configuration. Could you give us a talk through about today's payload? Rewind about 5 minutes, and we went through all of it. But yeah, there are 2 satellites for making sure that geostationary is organized and isn't having collisions and stuff. So yeah, that's a big topic there that we got sent in here. SpaceX should stop sending so many satellites. It conflicts with Earth telescopes. So one of the big things about that is, why are we using Earth telescopes when we could do outer space telescopes like James Webb? Obviously, we want to have ground-based telescopes, but really, there is a lot, but there's not a lot when you actually think about how big space is. And with technology now too, we can actually edit out satellites interrupting shots for research. So you could take multiple pictures, and if a satellite's in one of them, the computer actually know how to eliminate that one little spot in the image. So it is possible. Rusty, you're spot on there. SRB is basically a giant model rocket engine, so once they ignite it, it ignites it. Yep, absolutely, spot on. When you boil it down to very basics, absolutely, you're correct there. Hope ULA and NASA can catch up to SpaceX someday. That'll be near impossible, but that's because SpaceX has Starlink. So that is why you can see their main engine cutoff has occurred. And you can now see that perigee altitude is 176 kilometers with apogee at 319, which means they are in a stable orbit. They don't have to do anything, and they will keep orbiting the Earth, but they will do 2 more burns, but the first burn's not going to occur until about I believe it was about 90 minutes after launch, so well over an hour from now, and that is when they'll start pushing their orbit out to be at a further distance.
Truly an honor and a privilege to have served as your mission director and to be part of this amazing team that's delivering our space situational awareness payloads to orbit. Our space capabilities, they touch every facet of our lives. They advance our understanding of the universe. They allow us to see our world with greater clarity, more accurate navigation, stronger global commerce and communications. They enable precision farming and agriculture. And overall, they just allow us to operate with greater assurances. So your Space Force Guardians, we protect those assurances and our freedom of action in space. We're pathfinding innovative and resilient new space capabilities, but we don't do that alone. We work across strong allied partnerships, sister services, and our industry teammates to do so. So you remember when you were young and you looked up at the vastness of the stars in the sky? It was inspirational. The idea that space, it represented the unknown, that opportunity to dream and feel as though we could be part of something so much bigger than ourselves. It inspired our imaginations. But those of us who are dreamers, we're not just engineers and scientists. We're extremely skilled craftsmen, trade technicians, and others that build our rockets and our spacecraft. We're journalists, business and financial specialists, doctors, lawyers, contracts experts, logisticians, program managers. We are a mix of diversity of thought, perspectives, and expertise that all come together within the space enterprise. And today, it's truly my colleagues that keep me inspired. They're uniquely talented and a truly committed industry, government, and civil partnerships that we've built a foundation of teamwork and trust that is vital for us to stay competitive across the domain and continue to champion the safe and responsible use of space. Our bold and ambitious national space missions continue to show us that our future's truly unbounded. We're creators, we're innovators, we're leaders. And it's such an exciting time to be part of this evolving industry. There's an incredible amount of opportunities across so many disciplines to be a part of it. I am so proud of each and every member of our USSF 8 team. But I said there's so much more we can do. I challenge us all to keep dreaming, keep innovating together, and never let anyone turn our stars into a ceiling.
I wanted to stop and listen into that because I think that was important and it's a huge part of what we want to do here at the Launchpad is shine a light onto a lot of the industry that is in the space industry that you guys might not know about, that I didn't know about growing up, that, you know, being an astronaut's not the only way that you can work with rockets and be in space. There's lots of things coming and lots of industry that are changing.
We'll take another look at liftoff, which occurred at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
So they're going to do one last replay here, and then we're going to get ready to wrap it up for today. But a successful liftoff of Atlas 511 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's Slick 41. So I'll replay here for you guys. Send in any last questions that you have, and then we're going to wrap up. If you guys haven't yet, take a moment, make sure you follow us over on Twitter as well as on the Discord. I'm going to jump over into live comms following the launch, as well as check out over on our shop. You can use promo code LaunchDay and get 10% off your entire order there. SpaceX asking about the LV-008 launch with Astra. They still need their launch license from the FAA, so we are waiting on that. So we are weeks away from their launch, but they are wrapping it up there. There's a beautiful launch view from the beach. And that's going to do it. USSF-8 mission complete. They are up in orbit now, working on increasing their orbital positioning to work for deployment. Deployment not scheduled to take place for another 6 hours from now. Make sure you follow ULA's Twitter for updates there. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button and follow our James Webb Space Telescope's tracker. We are counting down the last couple of days until L2 insertion, and we hope you will join us on Monday afternoon for our big L2 party as James Webb arrives there. Our limited edition James Webb merch is still available all the way until that L2 burn is complete, so make sure you check that out. And that is going to do it for us here today. But here at the Launchpad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. This was our live launch coverage of U.S. Space Force-8, 2 satellites up into a near geosynchronous orbit over 22,300 miles up, 36,000 kilometers. But that's going to do it for us here today. This is Zach with the Launchpad signing off. We'll see you later this week for another launch right here on the Launchpad. Bye-bye.